The next thing we're going to learn about in terms of principles is to evaluate the quality of our responses. And that's really important. That's really the big difference between prompt engineering and just general prompting, because everything you've learned up till now is all stuff that you can take into your normal prompting. But evaluating the quality is what's necessary when you start to use these prompts in production. If you are using this prompt to generate lots of different blog posts, not just about this topic, but about multiple topics, then it can be a real problem if you don't get very good results. And we aren't getting very good results in one serious aspect, which is the length. And so this is the prompt that we have, and it does a pretty cool job of breaking out the structure into the hero's journey. We have all the different plot points, and then it's generating in this writing style that I wanted, this mixture of fantasy and reality, telling it a bit of a narrative. But if we copy this post, just going to copy that and then paste it into a word counter, we can see it's only 387 words, and that doesn't tell a long enough story. It's also not something that's going to rank on SEO particularly well because it's a pretty thin page. It's very short. There's not much information here either. We need to address that. And one of the ways we could try and do that is we can ask it to write 1,000 words. So just going to paste that in here. All I've done to the prompt is I've just added to the bottom here some instructions, and I said the blog post should be at least 1,000 words. Now, let me cut to the chase here. It's not going to work. I've tested this hundreds of times, and ChatGPT isn't good at counting. It can't count the number of words it's generated. And my guess is that when we test this, we're not going to have 1,000 words. We're going to have maybe slightly more than 400, but it's not going to get anywhere near exact as to what we need. Now, I do have a solution to this, by the way, and I'm going to show you that in a second once we test this. Okay, that's finished generating, so I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to copy up to the top here and then paste it into my word counter. You can see here it's 600 words. So all it's inferred is the vibes, right? Like it can't count. It just can think about the general vibes that you're asking it for. And when you say 1,000 words, it knows it needs to be longer, and it did make it longer, but it can't count the words. So you're not going to get exactly what you need. Instead, what I recommend you do is you specify the number of paragraphs, because it can count that pretty well, because these are bigger chunks of knowledge and it's pretty good at figuring that out. So this is my structure. This is how I do it. Just going to copy and paste in here and then hit enter. Now, all I did, the only thing I changed is in the instructions, I asked it to provide a very creative header for each plot point, and that helps it separate out the different plot points. Okay, so all I did here is in the instructions, I said provide a very creative header for each plot point, and that just helps it understand that it needs to break out these different sections and not just provide one big chunk of text. But the most important thing is that I've said at least 2 paragraphs per plot point. Now, again, it's not very good at counting, but a paragraph is a much easier vibe to specify, if that makes sense, versus a word, right? An individual word isn't really a unit, but a paragraph is pretty easy to separate out. What I found is it's very consistent at doing that. And you could just adjust the number of paragraphs or the number of sections in order to get to a rough word count that you need. You can see in here that we have the prologue, and we've got 2 paragraphs here, and then we have this section, we've got another 2 paragraphs. Now, you don't actually have to keep these headers. You can actually delete them if you did want just one big chunk of text, or if you wanted to mix the sections around or rename them, whatever you want to do. But now you have a much longer piece. And we can just see here, we have 3 sections written so far, and we know there are 12 sections so far in the hero's journey. So let me just paste in here. So we have 470 words just in the first 3 sections. And what we're going to get is, let's say 370 words divided by 3 sections times by 12 sections. We're going to get about 1480 words. That's going to be pretty big, right? It's a pretty substantial blog post, which is what we wanted. And that's something that's going to rank. It's going to contain a lot more information. It really has to reach for more stuff. I think that's really powerful. And this technique is pretty flexible. You can change really whatever you want. You can make a difference to the outline as well if you need to. So we're not going to continue generating that because it's going to take a while, but I also want to show you how this principle applies to images as well. So far, we've just been generating one image at a time, and we have the dystopian thing that we really liked, but there might be a different type of image that we could get. I'm just going to paste in here. This is a prompt that I wrote, which is a solar punk style, like futuristic prompt. It's not dystopian. It's actually really positive. And maybe that's the type of style that I wanted. But the first thing I need to do really is just see an example of that style and see if it's any good. Right now, it's just creating one image at a time because of the restrictions on DALL-E. But sometimes it does generate two images or more. You can see here that it did actually go on to the second one, but you might get different results depending on what restrictions they're putting in here, or just random luck. If it only generates one, you can then just say next image because it already has this prompt here, which is really helpful. And the cool thing it does is under the hood, it's actually changing the prompt. So it's still based on this, but it's actually slightly different. So you can see here, I've got in a solar punk future, a human with sleek communication device and a vibrant negotiation with a robot. And then if you download this one, you can see it was a different title. So this one's in a vibrant eco city, the human equipped with advanced communication gear. And you can see the difference in the prompt. This one is different again. We're lucky here because we're actually getting all four, but here we go. Human and robot, and it's embodying the fusion of technology and nature, right? It's taking a slightly different vibe each time. It's still interpreting my prompt, but in a way that it's going to give me a different direction to go in. And depending on which one I like, I can go in that direction or ask it for more images in that style. So this is really where it gets into evaluation. You can change the different parameters. Here I changed from dystopian to solar punk, but you can also get it to give you variations on that theme as well. And the people who get the best results with AI image generation, typically people who are just trying lots and lots of variations and seeing what works and then cherry picking the best results to display publicly. The key thing I want you to take away from this lesson is that the results are random in some cases. Like, you do get different results every time you run it. So if you're not testing multiple times, you're not getting to the actual truth as to what prompt templates work. You might have just been lucky on the first try, or actually maybe there was a slightly different variation that would have performed so much better. You just didn't know about it because you weren't testing it. So I figured out this word count thing through a lot of testing. I ran it 100 times different word counts and found that it didn't respect word count at all. As you increase the word count, it did get longer, but it never matched the actual word count that you specified. And then I tested the paragraph thing. I ran that 100 times, found like 90% of the time it does respect the number of paragraphs. So that is the sort of insight you can get, which might not be intuitive. A lot of people think because it's a computer, it should be able to count words, but that's what other computers do. That's word processing files have been able to do for decades, but ChatGPT is a very different type of computer. And we need to treat how we work with it very differently. We need to actually test and experiment in the real world and see what it can do and what it can't do.